What is up, everyone? Tonight on the most much watched coverage football show ever, we talk about hot seats, who fills them. We go back to college and do some lines. We remember the week that was. We look forward to the week that is ahead, and all that and more next on the full coverage football show.
It's the worst.
Beyond the Texans?
Yes.
Giants?
Yes.
What is up, and welcome into the full coverage football show. We are live on a frigid and rainy Thursday night here in Northeast Ohio. My name is Jeremy, and that is the Herman Moore to my Scott Mitchell, the Kevin Johnson to my Tim Couch. That's my boy Drew Ward. Brother Drew, how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. Yeah. Today was like the first day of saying, all right, this weather sucks.
Yeah.
I know it's something to come, but like today sucked. Yeah. That's all I got. How you doing, man?
I cannot complain. We're here to talk football. We got a good Thursday night football game on for most people, except right now it's 0-0, and every time I've looked, someone's punting. So
yeah, that's accurate.
Who knows? But let's get into our show tonight. Last week first, let's see. Last week we had Carson Beck in Georgia falling apart and getting their asses whooped. We had Miami losing to Georgia Tech. Kansas City blocked a field goal to get a win. Sneak out a win, 16-14. Jared Goff threw 5 picks, and y'all somehow won. Drew, from last week, what were some likes, dislikes, treated like a dating profile? Likes, dislikes
I
from
dislike
last weekend.
5 picks. I dislike that. I'm not a big fan of 5 picks, honestly. No, it was good to still come out with that game. But, yeah, I mean, the University of Miami losing was something that we've seen for 4 or 5 weeks. They've just continued to put themselves in positions where in the second half they're just fighting back, and it's like it has to come to an end at some point. I expect Miami to lose another game, if not 2 more games. Cam Ward's fantastic, but defensively they have issues.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Georgia losing too. I mean, Georgia now, and I'm sure we'll get into it. At this point, you're sitting on 2 losses, and I just don't see a world where 3 losses gets into the college football playoff. So every game matters, and their quarterback's been dog shit. So,
yeah, Carson Beck has been god awful to watch, and I think we both took Georgia last week. We just expected Georgia to pull off what they did with Texas, and Texas might be their best win. And even though Texas is 3rd in the college football playoff, which we will talk about later in the show, how good of a win really is that at this point? I mean, it looks like right now the SEC is just cannibalism. They're just picking each other off. And the Big Ten's lucky because the way that sets up for them, the only team facing anyone right now is Ohio State, who's faced the number 1 team, the number 4 team, and the number 5 team in the country based on the college football playoffs. The other guys have only faced 1 team in the top 5, and that's Ohio State. We go back to Miami losing. Like, Cam Ward came into this season, he didn't know what to expect out of him. He's been good everywhere he's been. He's played well. Looked at as a 6th-round pick, maybe a 5th round at best. And now this guy's being talked about as a top 10, top 15 overall pick because of how much he has carried Miami. Like, you look at the U, historically, you think of the defensive players they've had. Yeah, they've had great offensive players, but the U has been carried by defense. And right now, Mario Cristobal's defense, absolute garbage. I mean, you said it. They've snuck out win after win after win, just barely getting by. But Georgia, I mean, Carson Beck, this guy, coming into the year, some talked about him as a 1st-round pick. And right now, he's playing like a guy who shouldn't even be drafted. Terrible decision-making. He gets antsy in the pocket and throws it to the other team. And then when it comes down to it, towards the middle of the game, after they don't trust him, they're throwing screens behind the line, behind the line, behind the line. We're going to talk more about Georgia later, but that was a mess. Now, for you, the 5 interceptions, obviously, what a mess for Jared Goff, who hasn't thrown 5 incompletions in a game in what feels like 4 years. To come back and win that game, what's that say about your team? other than grit, which we can always use.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like if you were to ask my concern level on Jared Goff right now, it's 0. I mean, one was a tip pick, one was a Hail Mary. I mean, yeah, he wasn't great. But to be able to win a game with 5 picks, I believe it's only been done like twice in the last 25 years. Kind of shows that they have a complete team, right? Like the offense wasn't good. The defense turned around and stood on their head in the second half and gave up 0 points. And that's been the weakness of the Detroit Lions. This is without Zadarius Smith. What the defense did was show up in a big way in that second half. And you kind of felt the offense would eventually get it going because we've watched this offense for, the first 9 weeks. And they've been really damn good. So it wasn't like I thought that they had no chance. It's just to ask your defense to hold them to 0 points is really impressive. It shows they're a complete team. And I think this is one of those games that kind of proves that you're one of those teams that even on your worst Sunday, which this is probably one of the worst offensive Sundays for 2 to 2.5 years, you can still find a way to win games. And I think that's to the team, the roster, the coaching staff, that is kind of something they look at and say, okay, we really do have this thing. So it was terrible. 5 picks isn't great, but to get a team win like that shows that this team's ready to take the next step, and hopefully they do.
Yeah, piggybacking off what you said is they found a way to win. You look at what Kansas City did. Kansas City shouldn't have won that game. I mean, they didn't play well in that game at all. Denver looked like they had it, and Kansas City saw a weakness in a play that they probably could have used earlier, but they decided to hold off until they needed it. They blocked a field goal. They win that game.
That was even the worst blocking from a line on that. I mean, everybody got demolished. Pancake. I've never seen anything like it, dude.
It looked like you and I going against a peewee team, for God's sakes. Like, I looked at it, and there were like 6 guys on the ground on the left side of that field goal unit.
Yeah, and it's like, how does that happen? But apparently, and I didn't look too much into this on Twitter. They were saying that something similar against the Saints that was on film from that kick that they thought they could take advantage of, to your point. But you can't have every guy get beat. It's just not a good situation. And
not at all. And what we've seen is the good teams right now, even when it's ugly, they're finding ways to win. And maybe this year more than any other, there are teams separating themselves. Like, you look at the NFL as a whole, and you see a lot of terrible teams, and then a lot of really good teams right now who are just finding ways to win. Like, I don't think there's that many middling teams. Like, right now, you look at Tampa Bay, who was towards the top. They lost Godwin. They lost Evans. And it is just, they're going downhill right now. Even though Baker Mayfield made possibly one of the most amazing plays I've ever seen, holding off Nick Bosa with one arm.
Cade Otton been, by the way?
Cade Otton's been
Cade Otton's been just up. Like, and it sucks because I think Tampa Bay is a good football team, but you lose Mike Evans, who will be back.
Mm-hmm.
But then you lose Chris Godwin, which statistically was the better wide receiver. And you lose him for the year at the end of a game that you likely don't have a chance to win. That sucks for Tampa Bay. It really does. But again, that's a good football team. So,
and Tampa Bay's finding out who they are without those 2 stud wide receivers. You get Cade Otton stepping up. Bucky Irving has looked like the guy in the backfield. Rashad White looks like a dude who's going to take over a James White type role because his hands on some of those catches he had in the second half were unbelievable.
They kind of have like a platoon of 3 guys in that backfield. And I think they all do things that complement the other really well. And so that's what they're clearly going to have to lean on. And you see a tight end become their Baker's safety blanket for now. So they're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to work play action, and it's probably going to be less over the top and more intermediate stuff. But I think they're a good enough team, and I think they're a well-coached team with Todd Bowles. Like, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, Todd Bowles has proven in his second time around as a head coach that he does know what he's doing. Now, before we move in to headlines, we can't leave last week without talking about the sun. I mean, you can't catch a ball all of a sudden in Dallas because the sun is in your eyes. I mean, what are we going to do about the sun for the Cowboys? I mean, God's got to watch his favorite team. There's got to be a hole in the roof, and they got to have windows. What are we going to do about the sun, Drew?
Maybe this is Maybe this is God sending a sign to Jerry Jones that it's probably about done. You know, I mean, listen,
He's done or it's done. Because Jerry's fucking old.
Yeah, his time might be coming. His time might be coming. I mean, don't want that to happen to Jerry Jones, for the record. But
Adam
no,
Schefter, breaking news. Jerry Jones. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Jerry Jones dies from the sun. He laid out in the sun too long and just fried up and that stuff. No, I mean, I think that the sun's kind of a funny topic, and clearly it does play a factor. But the more hilarious topic here is the fact that the main headline around the Dallas Cowboys right now is the sun.
Not the fact that Micah Parsons is calling out his head or saying his head coach doesn't matter. They might start Trey Lance this week. I mean, Cowboys are a mess every week. There's Micah Parsons,
new. And I don't watch these podcasts, but I do TikTok, which is the greatest way to consume things for like the main highlights of things. And so I clearly see it. You know, they were doing top 10 quarterbacks, and they clearly didn't. They put Dak in there, and then you know, Mike McCarthy can go anywhere and he'll be fine. Like it's definitely troublesome there. The sun thing, I mean, yeah, clearly it's a fucking issue, dude. Like it's a problem. But at the same, I've been to this stadium. I've been in the stadium. Now I was there for a night game, so I don't want to act like I know everything here. But
does the moon get in their eyes as well?
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. You know that there's suns and moons. It's a sweet stadium, but again, like, you probably need to control it with some sort of with a curtain system, because Jerry Jones claims it's an advantage for his team, a home field advantage. Well, I saw CeeDee Lamb wide open and never saw a ball that was right at him. So, and that's the, you know, arguably the best receiver in football, or probably unarguably top 3. So for me, it's hilarious that we've just gotten here for the Cowboys at this point of the season. And of course, you know, Dak is out for the rest of the season. So we get Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. Certainly a treat for all viewers at home.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. But hey, when the Cowboys are winning, we don't hear these things. Let's move on to headlines. Drew, I ask you, we talked about it in last week first. Which loss hurt more, Georgia's loss to Ole Miss or Miami's loss to Georgia Tech as far as going forward? Which loss hurt more?
I think it's got to be Georgia. I mean, because just the difficulty of the schedule, and you know, I mean, and Georgia's lost 2 games to good teams. Good teams, yes. And to me, it's like the SEC with a 3-loss team. That 3-loss team, I could argue, probably deserves to be in the college football playoff if we're talking about the best teams in college football, if Georgia does lose 3. But for Georgia, now they're playing for their season every week. And they don't have an easy game this week. If they lose this week, in my opinion, their college football chances are probably shot, where I think Miami, with a little bit of an easier schedule, they're going to be able to probably sneak in the 12 moving forward. It's just, I don't love, I mean, it's basically just breaking it down by conference, right? What conference do you feel confident in? And yeah, Georgia's showing the ability to bounce back, but that's a huge loss. And then you continue to have to play difficult teams. I would be impressed if Georgia comes out of here with just 2 losses.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at the whole SEC, there could be 5 3-loss teams who will have a chance to be in the college football playoffs just because of how good that conference has been. Now, as far as Miami,
Texas now, right? Like, you add fucking Texas, and now Texas is marginally back.
Yeah, and they added Oklahoma, who is basically cosplaying as Oklahoma.
Not back at all.
No, they're terrible. So when you look at the ACC standings right now, SMU leads overall with 5-0. Then you got Clemson 6-1, Miami 5-1. Miami needs to make the conference title game in order for them to make the college football playoff. Georgia has a road where they could end up making that college football playoff, losing that game as their 3rd loss, and still making it. It's hard to say. Like, I'm with you that Georgia needs to win. They lose to Tennessee, and they're already ranked 12th. They're the first team out right now as we look at the college football playoffs, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But Miami's got to win. They've got the easier conference. I think when they look down at it, it's a TV thing for the college football playoffs. And I think Georgia is more important for TV ratings than Miami, because the U isn't the U that we grew up with. Georgia is a 2-time national champion back to
I just think
back.
the U's fraudulent, dude. I think it's a
They are.
fraudulent team.
I think SMU would dominate them, and Clemson, even though Clemson isn't great, they haven't been, the dominant Clemson we saw in years past. They're playing way better football right now, and they should win over the U. Now, when it comes to that ACC title game, who knows? Everything's up in the air, but that's a very interesting thing to look at going forward. Moving on to our next thing, Bears fire Shane Waldron. They take over or give Thomas Brown the OC duties. Thomas Brown, for those of you who don't remember, he was the offense coordinator last year in Carolina with the Panthers, where he led Bryce Young to the 32nd ranked overall offense. Now, this move is the first time the Bears have fired an offensive coordinator mid-season since 1970. The Bears have been around forever, and they haven't been good in what feels like forever as well. It's been a long time since we had Rex Gross and Brian Urlacher. It's been a long time since the 85 Bears. It's been a long time since Papa Hallis was running
even since Smoking Jay Cutler, dude.
Yeah, it has been bad over there in Chicago, and I know that kills you as someone who is a fan of that division with your team being there. But
yeah,
right now, the Chicago Bears are just an absolute mess. Absolute mess.
Yeah, and this makes no difference, by the way.
It doesn't. And it's what sucks is you have a guy, Caleb Williams, who's a number 1 pick, who was trying to get comfortable with anything. And I can't blame Caleb for what he's doing, because if you watch Caleb, like I sat there, I watched 40 minutes of Caleb highlights today.
He runs for his life every
He looks like the same guy he was at USC. The thing is, you're expecting him to be something else. And when you look at the Bears built overall, yeah, they got him weapons. They've got wide receivers, but that offensive line is terrible. They don't run the ball. And you're playing in Chicago with 14-mile-per-hour crosswinds on a good day, let alone, the team they should have built themselves like is the team on your hat. They should have built the lines up first. Now, we gave all kinds of credit to Ryan Poles for getting Odunze, for getting Allen, DJ Moore. Phenomenal guys, but your offensive line is still trash. You're not helping that kid at all. And when you're watching this guy be the same guy he was, it makes no sense that you're going to fire Waldron, even though he was terrible. They should have moved on from Eberflus. What do you say about this whole situation?
Yeah, it's tough because, I think a lot of the times that we've seen this, we talk about this a lot. Like, you can ruin a quarterback if you ruin their confidence immediately. And I think, yeah, they have great wide receivers, right? Like, they really do. But the offensive line, when a young quarterback has it's similar to the David Carr kind of scenario where the offensive line was so bad that he gets hit so often, he loses confidence. So even if these wide receivers are great, and I think it's a really good wide receiver group, there's no time for these routes to progress. He's immediately having to be flushed out of the pocket. And we talk about it again all the time. You have to build up front, and for them going out and getting a flashy wide receiver, you question whether that pick could be better spent on the offensive line, or if assets in the offseason financially could be spent on a free agent. Yeah. So for me, it's tough. They've been dog shit forever. It's the other thing is they've just been offensively terrible forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, Eberflus has fired so many people, and we're still in the same kind of spot here. At some point, the head of the snake needs to be cut off as well.
Yeah, and he's fired everyone except for the offensive line coach, and that's the one thing we're bitching about right here. And Eberflus, it's worse for, when you look at it all around, Eberflus at the end of last year looked like a guy who could coach football. Had they moved on from him, and not only look better for him, but it would be better for them to start fresh, bringing in Caleb with a new guy, because right now you're going to have him on second offense coordinator rookie year and probably getting rid of Eberflus and bringing in another guy next year. He's going to be on a second head coach, third offense coordinator. It's the Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions for years. It's the way we've screwed up quarterbacks. We've seen it a million times. But for Caleb, when you watch him, he's literally playing the same type of football he was at USC. It's just these athletes are so much better.
And he's not that good either.
Right now, it doesn't look like it.
He was good, really good at USC, but he's, even with the right things clicking, he's average. And you know what? That's not a knock on him. There's certainly a shitload of average quarterback play across the league that I watch on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, but How are his nails?
Yeah. I mean, right now he's not average. Right now he's dog shit.
Yeah, let's move on to the college football playoff. Let's pull up those rankings. So we look at them right here as we pull it up.
We by the way, is the 5 seed the greatest seed in this college football playoff?
It could be, especially for the Buckeyes, because you're going to get a home playoff game at the Shoe. We'll go up to that real quick. You look at the 5 seed, and right now it shows 5, but because you have to be a conference winner to get a bye, the Ohio State Buckeyes are actually the 5 seed. I mean, when you look at the way this is set up, Big Ten dominating, SEC dominating, and then you got Notre Dame, Miami, BYU.
BYU should have lost as well.
They should have. And it sets up a big matchup for Utah this week, who looked like they could play football again. And they're going
what
to
the hell happened there? They cost me U.S. currency, American dollars. I've been fading Utah for a little while. It's been profitable, but
I stopped betting Utah when I realized Cam Rising was 43 years old and had a degenerative hip issue. What happened? Is he gone? Did he disappear? Did the sun get him? I mean, Cam Rising is just MIA.
He's at the non-Heisman house there with your boy Brandon Whedon.
Yeah. Utah was supposed to be the team that won the Big 12, and right now it looks like Colorado is setting up to be in that. And when I was talking earlier about TV ratings and then one in Georgia, the TV ratings want Colorado to sneak in there because Deion equals ratings.
Yeah.
But as of right now, the way you look at this let's look at the top 10. We got Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, BYU, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Miami, and Bama. Any of these teams you think are going to climb? Any of these teams you think don't deserve to be here? What do you think about these rankings?
I mean, Notre Dame certainly doesn't. Miami will end up not being in there, in my opinion. But it's so hard. Like with the 12-team playoff, this just all seems so box office for no reason. When we conference change, you know what I mean? Like this whole shit's going to be turned on its head when we sit back here in 5 weeks and talk about this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard for me to say. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be there. I don't think Miami's going to be there. I mean, Ole Miss with just a huge win, right? Like that was huge for Lane Kiffin.
Absolutely.
It's just so to me, it's like I get like the excitement about like looking at this. Oh, let's look at the bracket, and people are like, oh, my team's this play. It's like it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at this point.
It doesn't matter at this point, but it's fun to look at. And you see Boise State as 13, but Boise State's in, Georgia's out based on the way the rankings work. So it would be Ohio State against Boise State. We're still getting that Ashton Ginty into Ohio State.
We talked about that last week, didn't we? Yeah. That was
that's going to be a fun game. There's some really fun games setting up. But as of right now, you said it, this doesn't matter.
Respectfully. I mean, fine.
There's going to be some fun games setting up, and there's so much more that has to happen. Colorado's got a game against Utah who showed they were feisty. They're still that team that can do some damage, and that's a 10 a.m. local game. We're going to talk about that a little later. Speaking of Colorado, let's move on to our next headline. Deion, is he setting himself up for a pro job? Every headline you see is Deion saying, I'm not going to say anything publicly, but I'm going to say something privately about any of these teams drafting Shedeur. And Shedeur may be the number one quarterback ranked overall. He might not be a top quarterback as far as last year's rankings, but we all see how much those rankings mean. There's a lot of people saying these quarterbacks aren't worthy of a first-round pick, some of them. Is this going to be a Christian Ponder, EJ Manuel type draft? I doubt it. Teams are still going to overdraft kids no matter what. Do you think what Deion's basically saying is, hey, if you want Shedeur, give me full power. Let me come in there. Like, is that owner who is so hungry to win going to fall in love with Shedeur so much that he's going to bring Deion in to run his team? Is this something we're looking at with the Giants and the Mara family, who had the Mara Tisch, ownership group that hasn't won in a while? Is this something you could see any other of those top teams doing eventually, is bringing in Deion? And by the way, Adam Schefter, Drew and I were talking about this first, and then all of a sudden you tweet out this idea. Not cool, dude. Not cool at all. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I personally hate the narrative of this. Like, I hate the narrative of him saying that there's teams that my son won't go to, and of course, listen. his son leaving, Travis Hunter leaving, like if there's a time to get out, this would probably be at the time. And he's done nice things. Like, listen, Colorado's legitimate right now, and so good for him. But I hate the idea of it. I hate, you could say the Cowboys, the Giants, but like, what happens when like the Jaguars are sitting there and he refuses to go to that team? And like, I just, it's dirty. I just don't like it. I also don't think that, and I like Shedeur Sanders. I think this quarterback class is guys that are going to be overdrafted. And don't get me wrong, it happens every year. There's quarterbacks that are drafted every single year where it's like, holy shit, that guy's terrible. Stetson Bennett went early. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so to me, it's, of course there's going to be first round draft picks. You could say he's a 5th round draft pick in your projections, but it doesn't matter because he's going to get taken in the first round. I don't like any of it. And I'm not sure Deion's set to coach an NFL team. And I'm not sure his son's set to be a elite starting quarterback for a team. So I think that presents a shitty issue down the road, whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, you look at Shedeur right now. He's got skills. He's accurate. He throws the ball well. He can lead his team to a win. But there's so much randomness with this team. Like the thing with the ball boy last week, and he holds onto the ball so long. Like, dude's got balls of steel because he holds onto that ball and takes some crazy hits. And cool, good for him. He's a solid quarterback. He looks good. And in the right situation, he could be really, really good. I mean, look at Mac Jones. His first year, he was really good. Lost his offensive coordinator, decided to make Matt Patricia a play caller on offense. And he's been ass ever since. When you brought up the Jaguars have a chance to make history right now. They could be the first team to get the first overall pick 3 times in 5 years. Like, Trevor Lawrence was supposed to turn that team around, and he was a generational prospect, can't miss. So when you're talking about quarterback prospects, it is an absolute coin toss. I mean, coming into the year, Shedeur was the guy. Cam Ward was possibly a 6th-round pick. And now the way he's led Miami, the people are talking, 5th overall maybe. Okay, we'll see. Let these guys work through some things. They've got a lot of film on them. Let's find the right fits for these guys. And maybe Deion doesn't want him there. Maybe Jacksonville gets first pick, and they should take Travis Hunter if they do, because he could help them on both sides of the ball, and I think he should.
Yeah, so is Deion going to just fucking block 2 players from going places?
Yeah, exactly. Is that going to be something he does? Because they're obviously not going to take Shedeur. They just gave Trevor $275 million. They're going to work that out. They're going to figure out a way to make it work. But for Deion, could be a power move. He's won at the FBS level. He's won the FCS level. He's turned around programs by bringing in his Louis, as he said. Get out of here, I'm bringing in my Louis. That's not going to happen in the NFL, but he's a guy who, if he builds a program with the right guys around him, maybe he could make it work. But if you're going to try to run it the same way you're doing it in Colorado, it is not going to work out in the NFL. And I think he's smart enough to know that as a guy who's been there, but who knows? And let's use that as a segue to move into our next segment, Friends of Football. In this segment, we're going to bring up an article written by Jeff Howe earlier today in The Athletic. If you get a chance, or if you are a subscriber to The Athletic, check it out. Basically, all it is stuff most of us are going to say we already know. As far as NFL head coaching candidates, there are so many guys on the hot seat. Mike McCarthy probably going to be out at the end of the year. Dennis Allen already fired. I mean, is Antonio Pierce going to hang on to that job? He looked like he was running the Raider way, and it looks like they're crap right now. You go division by division, there's a lot of teams that might look for new head coaches. So who are some of the candidates you're going to look at? There's guys who are current and former NFL head coaches like Belichick, Vrabel. Maybe McCarthy goes somewhere else at the end of the year. Brian Flores has done a hell of a job with the defense in Minnesota. Is he going to get a look? Is he somebody who might get a look? Or is what happened in Miami with the way things were handled with Tua going to change that? Steve Spagnuolo has done a dominant job with the Giants at one point leading Super Bowl defenses, and now he's done excellent with Kansas City. Cliff Kingsbury is a guy whose name comes up. I don't think Cliff should get another job. We'll talk about that more. Vance Joseph, and then there's the potential guys. There's your guy, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn. Deion is the guy that comes up. Zach Robinson, the Falcons offense coordinator, probably too early for that one. Bobby Slowick with the Texans. Liam Cohen, who is the offense coordinator, has done a solid job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Drew Petzing, who's done a solid job with the Arizona Cardinals as their offense coordinator. Drew, who are some of the guys you expect to get head coaching jobs? What are some of the jobs you expect to open that we haven't seen yet?
I mean, the Dallas job's going to open.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Jones probably should have pulled the plug last year. I kind of in my mind I see Cliff Kingsbury in Chicago. That is what I see. Now I'm gonna fucking continue to rub my crystal ball here. I see Aaron Glenn as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints.
That seems like a gimme on that one. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So I see that. Now, Dallas becomes the interesting one. Because I think Dallas would rather have Ben Johnson than Bill Belichick. And I know that might sound crazy. But that's kind of what I feel. Now, where does Bill Belichick end up then? The New York Jets?
Could see that.
The New York Giants?
I mean, the Jets, there's history there.
Dayball's dead too. Dayball's dead too. Dead.
They say they're going to bring him back in 2025, but that's a dreaded vote of confidence. So, yeah.
Dead.
That's a job I see Deion possibly taking.
The New York
Giants.
Giants.
The Giants. They're going to get a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
They're going to get rid of Danny Dimes and his $23 million dead cap. Fine, not that big of a deal, especially when you look at the Browns facing $172 million in dead cap. But $23 million, not so bad with Danny Dimes. I could see that. The Cliff Kingsbury thing's interesting because the Raiders interviewed Cliff Kingsbury. They didn't decide to hire him. They fired their offense coordinator. Chicago interviewed Cliff Kingsbury, who worked with Caleb Williams at USC, and they decided not to hire him. And then he goes to Washington. He's done a phenomenal job with Jaden Daniels. Now, if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, I take the Ben Johnson approach, and I say, you know what? I'm in a phenomenal situation right now. I am going to just chill out here. The guy I think, this could be crazy, the guy I think fits perfectly in Chicago is a guy that is in college right now. Oh, yeah, Ditka, always.
You went back to college?
Is in college right now. Has worked with Caleb Williams. The team he's working for wants to get rid of him, allegedly behind the scenes. Has a massive buyout, but could get offset if he goes to the NFL. I think Lincoln Riley is a guy to keep an eye on in Chicago, just as a bizarre off-the-wall candidate to make things work for Caleb Williams, which is a terrible way to hire.
I fucking
because
love the Bears, dude.
This is a thing where you're like, oh, we're going to help out Caleb Williams. And we look at a lot of these jobs when they're hiring, they're like, oh, we got to make sure we take care of this guy or this guy. What about the rest of the fucking team?
Yeah.
Like, we fall for that. Like, I was a big guy getting Freddie Kitchens hired here in Cleveland because him and Baker had a great relationship. Freddie couldn't manage the rest of the fucking team, okay? I love Freddie. Phenomenal dude. Shitty football head coach. As far as everything else, phenomenal. Good dude. Phenomenal dude. Dude I'd want to hang out with. Dude I'd want to chill and watch a game with. Dude I'd want to go to a movie with when he's wearing a Pittsburgh Started shirt after his player tried to kill another player on the field. But these head coaching roles are so important. And I think more people need to be the way you saw Ben Johnson, where he's just waiting. And for some of these assistants, remember, there's no salary cap for coaches. They can get paid a shit ton of money to stay. I mean, why not if you're in a good spot?
If I'm Sheila Fordham, the beautiful lady she is, I'm fucking spending money on Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson to stay here. And it's like, if you're them, it's like, this is a pretty good gig, right? Like we're going to be a pretty good team for the next handful, 3 years probably. Yeah, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, man. Nope. And again, you get into these, like, there's some shit jobs, dude. Like say you go into Chicago, the roster in theory is great, but you need to completely revamp the offensive line. You got a young quarterback learning an entire new system. Mm-hmm. It's like, what's the turnaround time going to look like on that? We're not humming coming out of 2025. We got work to do.
Like, are you better or worse than Carolina is? Basically doing the same thing.
We didn't even talk about Carolina. I mean, I think Carolina, they'll keep their coach.
They should.
That's a bad roster. Like, right? Like some rosters just like that's just not a good roster. That's why your team's bad. So like, but I don't think the Bears are necessarily that. And that's why a lot of people pick the Bears to win the NFC North. Fucking losers. But that's not going to happen. But like, the Bears are 4-5. Like, it's not like they're terrible. It's
No.
not like they have 2 wins like the Browns.
They're gonna have 3 at the end of this week.
The Browns are?
Yeah. Well, the Bears can't. They can't lose again. I mean,
Oh,
they should the way they
Derek
play.
Carr's 4-0 against you. I don't know what you mean.
That's fine. We'll talk about that later.
He's trying to get a win for no reason.
No, we're gonna get a win. We'll talk about it later, though.
Right.
But as far as these jobs, you look at the Jets. I mean, AFC North probably stands pat. The West, probably everyone comes back there. Speaking of teams that have stayed together, there's basically 3 Hall of Famers on the Chiefs coaching staff, and Spags, Dave Tobe, and Andy Reid. I mean, some of these teams are staying together. Raiders probably, they're a toss-up. Who wants to go there? You've got no quarterback. That's basically a job that someone's going to be like, hey, you can come here. You can pick your own quarterback in a quarterback class that everyone's up and down on. NFC East, Cowboys getting a new head coach. NFC North, only the Bears. I mean, you look at the NFC West, probably everyone's staying there. NFC South, pretty much staying there as well. New Orleans is the only team. And Aaron Glenn is just such a perfect fit for that job. It should be his. But we'll see. And it sucks because you don't know how these guys are as CEOs. That's what the thing is with being a head coach.
A lot more responsibility.
Exactly. And you'll see going forward. And Belichick, is he going to get left out again? Is Vrabel going to be the hot name? Vrabel going to be the guy the Jets want to go to after they just had that hard-ass defensive coordinator guy?
Buckeyes.
Very possible, especially the way the next 3 weeks go when they're facing Indiana and Kirk Cignetti's horse after a bye. That could be interesting. It shouldn't be, but it could. And then, of course, you could have a 6 or 7 loss Michigan team who, if Ryan Day loses that game,
Michigan's not that bad, in my opinion.
They're not that
don't
good
have a
either.
quarterback. No, they're not. They're not good. Ryan Day's not going to lose that game, but and that's what sucks is because if Ryan Day gets us to the playoff again, it's like, well, we have to retain him. But it's like, Mike Brady would be pretty cool.
It would.
Would you take Hartline? Mike Brady? So at the end of the season, we lose in the Bahama Mama Bowl, which is in the playoff, I guess. Who knows? There's so many bowl games. Would you want Mike Vrabel or would you retain Ryan Day another year?
See, how far are we getting in the playoffs?
We won the first game against Boise State.
Okay. And we've beat Michigan. Our only loss going in is Oregon.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to go against him because I don't know what kind of recruiter is Mike Vrabel going to be.
It's the same fucking ending every year.
Yeah,
it always seems like
it's
like he's
and I have called him John Cooper.
We can't fire a guy making the playoff and stuff, but at the same time, it's like you always kind of lose in the playoff.
Yeah.
But so here's my thing: is most times I'm team like you don't fire a coach because you're not going to be able to replace him with somebody that's do a better job. And I'm not saying Mike Vrabel is going to do a better job necessarily, but I'll tell you what, Ohio State is a recruiting factory, whether you and I are the head coach.
Yeah.
So if we can get same said recruits that Ryan Day does with Mike Vrabel, because I honestly think the defense has been the issue with the team over this kind of spell of not winning. Yeah, the offense has been okay, but the defense has not been good in the big time game. So Mike Vrabel is going to bring him in.
Does Vrabel want to deal with the bullshit of college football the way it is right now, though?
Probably not.
Listen, Mike Vrabel's a fantastic dude. He's fun to watch. He's intense. He's a Buckeye. You know what you want. But would he rather coach adults or guys who are going to be like, hey, coach, I know I made $800,000 last year. I was thinking, maybe we could fix my NIL. And he's like, get the fuck out of my office. He spits his chew at the kid, and then we're getting kids transferring out because he's putting cigarettes out on the back of their heads in practice or some shit. But yeah, Vrabel is that's obviously not something that's going to happen. It's just a possibility. But
I mean, this got dark.
But yeah, it's tough because Ryan Day is one, and I love how this always goes crazy on the show. But Ryan Day, eventually he's got to win with all the money they put in. This is a $20 million roster, they've said. It's insane. And you've got a lot of excellent play out of your transfer portal guys. Not like you got DJ Ungalalele or some shit and you're 1-9. Buckeyes we're spoiled.
Judkins hasn't even been unleashed.
No, and I feel like maybe they're holding back a little bit until the playoff. We'll see. Hopefully we don't have to.
That'd be very fucking cocky of them if they were.
I mean,
just assuming they're just going to roll right through.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Why not? Okay, let's move on. While we're talking college, let's move on to something everyone loves doing. That's doing lines, which sounded a little different than it should have. But we're doing lines. We're talking college betting lines. Drew, at this segment, we are going to talk a little bit about lines that don't seem to make sense to us. We like or we do not like at all. My first one, I'm going to go first here, is USC minus 8.5. USC is 4-5. They just benched Miller Moss, who's allegedly going into the portal because that's what you do the second you get benched these days. They're facing Nebraska. Nebraska, 9th in the nation against the run, averaging 2.8 yards per carry. Their defense is 14th ranked overall. So USC is bringing in 6'4", 230 Jaden Mayava, a transfer from UNLV. The defense is still average, and their hope is to really run the football right now. So you're going to face Nebraska, who's traveling, and we know we've talked about, traveling over Nebraska, California, a little closer than some of these other ones. But it's not Rutgers to California. But 8.5 points, favorites for a USC team that's in garbage. I feel like this should be a much smaller line. I feel like Nebraska, as long as they can stop the run, should be way closer in this game. I don't like that line at all. You like that line?
So USC's weird. No, I don't like the line. But like USC to me is they're Jekyll and Hyde. It depends on what team shows up on Saturday, which is why they're a tough team. Like, is it the team that played Michigan? Like the team that played Michigan was not very good. Or the team that played Michigan was very good. Sorry, I'm losing my mind. No, I don't like it. I think it should be more. And I think also at the same time, Nebraska loses a couple games and all of a sudden they played good teams. They've gotten beaten up by two good teams and they got a freshman quarterback.
Yeah, that run defense is still fine. Drew, what do you have as your first line that you like or dislike?
LSU. So LSU is right now minus 3.5 going to Florida. And I know LSU's had their problems, but they've been in spurts offensively, in my opinion. Florida's just not a good football team.
No.
And going to the Swamp is no longer the home field advantage that I would expect. I expect this to be a 7 to 10 point win for LSU, even on the road. Better quarterback, better offense. Give me LSU.
Lagway going to play in that game? Have they announced it yet? Because I know
not yet. Game. Well, that changes things, but yeah, not yet.
I mean, Lagway's a solid player. He's a 5-star athlete, but we haven't seen it yet at this level. I'm with you. I don't like that line at all. Next one I have is BC plus 18.5 at number 14 SMU. SMU is a dog right now. The way they're playing, they can do just about everything. And for BC, this is a team that beat Florida State. We thought, oh, wow, they beat Florida State. Well, that wasn't an impressive win at all. Thomas Castellano has now entered the portal. They lost their QB. Apparently, that's where I'm going with all these, except for the last one. But Grayson James is going to start, and he hasn't really played much. I think 2 games. SMU needs to win to keep their playoff hopes alive to stay in the ACC because when it comes to TV ratings and big names, SMU isn't that. SMU hasn't been that since they got the death penalty in the 80s. The Mustangs can stop the run. We don't know what to expect out of this quarterback. I think this should be a bigger spread. I think SMU wins this game by 22. I would actually bump this to plus 21. I don't like this at all. What say you, sir?
I 100% agree with you. I think SMU, I mean, this is a super important game. We mentioned kind of earlier, like this is a big game for SMU. I expect them to roll. They've been consistent. They've been great offensively. Let's roll with them.
What's your next one?
Big game, Tennessee, Georgia. Okay. I bought the Georgia bug when the last game they lost. They came back out and they were fantastic. I'm not buying that right now. The Carson Beck looks terrible. Tennessee is getting now 10.5.
Guess
I'm looking at here. That's too many points for me. Tennessee's been really good. I know it's on the road, but that's too big of a spread in my opinion. And this is a big boy football game. I just think Tennessee it runs the ball well enough, especially to keep it close.
Yep. Yeah, I think Dylan Sampson can keep it close because when you look at what Georgia's done, their offense is trash. And even if Nico Iamaleava doesn't play, they bring in Gas Pipe off the bench. He's played solid in spurts when he's had to. I mean, he was good in the second half against Bama. His nickname's Gas Pipe, which is fantastic. I like him way better than I like Carson Beck's face. Can't stand Carson Beck at this point. I feel awful, but I'm picking on a college kid. But damn, yeah, I like Tennessee. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tennessee win this outright.
I agree.
My next one is number 9 Alabama against Mercer. Mercer, they're like 9-1. They're playing really good football for whatever Division 3 FBS sub team they are. Minus 41.5 on this one. Alabama's offense, I don't know if they're worthy of this. Now, this is a team they should dominate. But the reason I have this one is because I have many other questions based on this one. Is Bama's worthy of this? Maybe. I think they could be up 35-0 at halftime easy. But in the second half, I'm guessing because Bama's got bigger games coming up, they're going to end up playing their 2s and 3s. Now, are 2s and 3s as good now as we grew up with, where it was all 5-star backups, or is it because the portal era has changed things? Are these 2s and 3s going to be good enough to not have like a second half where the top stars of Mercer facing these 2s and 3s are going to make 10-10 second half where it ends up 45-10 or something, and not have them come up? So I ask you, do you like this line? Is this a line you want to go with? Or does that portal era change some of these big lines?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It certainly does. I mean, you got to think, like, there's been teams where the transfer portal just at the quarterback position has completely changed the trajectory of their school. So it matters. And it matters more on the people see the front levels, the quarter, the starting positions. But yeah, to your point, you're able to transfer guys that we don't, necessarily they're not 5 stars. We don't hear about it. Certainly it helps with depth or hurts with depth. If you go to smaller schools, to me, 42 points, I'm normally the guy that's on your side here, right? Like I'm normally a guy that says, hey, give me the 42 points. But I think at this point, Alabama has to come out and prove something. I know this isn't necessarily the 14 playoff, but they're sitting there on the edge. I believe in the 10 spot, or if I remember correctly, maybe outside of it, I'm losing it. But I think it's very important for them to come out and kind of dominate and win. You know what I mean? That's my concern here. Mercer and having 9 wins though. Good for them, dude. I mean,
Bama's definitely capable of pulling this out, but with all the people that they lost in the offseason, as far as transfer portal guys going out, 2 of which came to Ohio State,
new coach,
I mean, they might just shut it down in the second half. 41.5, I would stay away from this one, but it's possible they win this game 56-63 nothing at the same time. But I would stay away from this one. I don't like this line at all. What's your last one, bud?
What was my last one? Oh, BYU game.
Okay.
So BYU barely snuck out a win last week.
22-21.
And BYU's kind of been the magical team. But for me, BYU at home to Kansas football, and I know they've been better, and I know you might see BYU as somewhat of a gimmicky team. I think this line should be more around 6.5. I love BYU. I don't know if this line just based off what we saw last week, but to me, Kansas is not worthy of only being a 2.5 point favorite.
It all depends on, what Jalen Daniels does. Jalen Daniels came into the league, or the year, I'm getting him and Jaden Daniels crossed here, came into the year with a lot of hope and a lot of hype. And he's been hurt. He's been up and down. And maybe they're playing it based on BYU. Maybe it's because he's going to play, maybe that. But I don't know. I don't like that line either. I think BYU should dominate that game, and I think they have to prove it because right now they're ranked 6. I think they want to show going forward that they can be the best team in that conference. Now, moving on, we're going to have game picks. Looks like you got a visitor behind you, bud.
Yeah.
Coming to visit.
Unfortunately. Hey, go lay down. I'll come lay with you when I'm done. Sorry.
We're good. All of a sudden, I saw the little head poke around the corner. I'm like, is he about to be killed? Like on TV?
I heard footsteps, but I didn't see her. You know what I mean? But like I kind of was aware she was around.
That's awesome. So moving on, we're going to move on to game picks here. We're going to start in college as we're talking college football. First one, 4:15 Eastern on the SEC Network. Number 23, Missouri at number 21, South Carolina. South Carolina, a 12.5-point favorite. Do you think these two teams are ranked closely? Both 4-3 in the SEC for South Carolina, 3-2 in the SEC for Missouri. I think this game is going to be dominated by South Carolina. I got South Carolina in this. Give me Lenore Sellers. Have a hell of a day. Who you like in this game?
I like South Carolina as well.
That one's easy. Next, moving on to a noon Eastern kickoff for Big Noon on Fox. And this makes no sense. We are all starting to hate Big Noon more and more each week. Utah 4-5. They're 1-5 in the Big 12. Basically, Big 12's done for them. They travel to Colorado, which 2 hours behind Eastern time, which would make this a 10 a.m. local time kickoff, which means your guys are getting up at 5:30, 6 a.m. to get to the field, to Folsom Field there in Colorado. They're second in the Big 12, 5-1. This is a big prove-it game for Colorado because even though Utah isn't good, they were still expected to be the top team in this conference. I mean, we know that Colorado is wanted to be in that college football playoff. BYU 6-0. We just talked about them. They're behind. They got Kansas and Oklahoma State coming up next. Big game for Utah. Who you like? Or big game for Colorado against Utah. Who you like in this one?
I actually like Colorado. I just think they got too much offensively. And I'm rooting for Colorado just to see what we may be able to see down the road here.
Yeah, be nice to see Travis Hunter in big games, proven, showing it on the national stage against what he can do against really big competition. I mean, I think we both thought they'd be gone by now, Colorado, and kudos to Deion for keeping them close. All right, number 7, Tennessee at Georgia. I think we both talked about this a little bit earlier. I like Tennessee in this game. You as well?
Yeah. Give me Tennessee. I that's probably my favorite game of the weekend to watch.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. That is definitely going to be a good game. College game day will be in Athens for that one. Let's move on to the NFL. Let's make sure I got my right pages here. Let's go Packers. They are 5.5-point favorites, 6-3 at the Bears, 4-5. The Packers have won 10 straight against the Bears. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I like the Packers. I mean, even with Jordan Love kind of banged up, I mean, it's been kind of in and out and in and out. He's had issues, but when Malik Willis has stepped in, he's actually moved the ball and been pretty serviceable. So give me the Packers.
Yeah, right now Mike Tomlin's probably the favorite for Coach of the Year, but kind of guy who's getting overlooked is Matt LaFleur. He's done a hell of a job there. I will take the Packers as well. Jaguars probably led by Mac Jones with a bye coming up next week. Don't like these late season buys, especially with teams like the Ravens getting a week 14 bye, but that's for another thing. Jags 2-8 at the Lions 8-1. This is now a 14-point spread. The last time I looked, the over/under is 47. Lions have a chance to have their first 8-game win streak since 1934. Lions, I think, win this game. They should win this game.
Yeah,
you think
I'm
they cover?
Not touching the points though. I mean,
okay.
Hey, listen, I hope they beat them by 3 touchdowns, but 2 touchdowns in the NFL is a big spread. I'm not gonna go, but the Lions will win this game.
They should
9-1, and that'll be fun.
This should be a 37-10 game all day. Like rest the guys in the second half, and if you're playing David Montgomery, he's going to have a good first half, and then they might shut everything down in the second half. As far as fantasy, Raiders 2-7 at the Dolphins, 3-6, 7.5-point favorites for the Dolphins. Who you like?
I think the Dolphins keep the momentum rolling here a little bit. That was a big win against the Rams because their season's kind of dwindling, and I think the Raiders are kind of a dumpster fire. It's Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew,
Desmond Ritter,
both dog shit. Yeah, Desmond Ritter. Like that. Yeah, we got 3 dog shit quarterbacks. So.
It's a Spider-Man meme holding dog shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Minshew gets a start in this one. They're turning to Scott Turner. This is his first game. Maybe they try to run more. But for the Dolphins, they won that game against the Rams. They didn't win it on offense. That was the defense. Calais Campbell stepped up. You saw a lot of guys step up. Dolphins defense plays like that. They should win this and cover. Rams, who they just lost on Monday Night Football, in only the second game under McVay where they scored no touchdowns, and only the third game third home game ever that Matthew Stafford didn't have a touchdown in a game. They're 4-5. They travel to New England to face the Patriots, who are 3-7. Rams 4.5-point favorites. Who you like in this one?
Yeah, listen, I love what Drake May's done. Right, like he's been serviceable, but I like the Rams in this one, and the Rams kind of have to have this one.
Yeah, Rams have to have this one. This is a must-win for them. I will take the Rams as well. The Browns 2-7. They are now -1. Started the week +2.5. They're now -1 at the Saints 3-7. Now this is a Jameis revenge game, or it's a Saints revenge game against Jameson or Jameis. Sorry, Jameson Williams, Jameis, whatever. Now the Saints, they won last week. Surprised everyone. They beat the Falcons. Thing is, they got the new head coach bump, which most teams get minus the Jets. Every team seems to win that first game with a new head coach. They weren't that good last week, though. They have 468 yards on defense. There were 3 missed field goals by Younghoe Koo. And there was 0 pressure on Derek Carr because the Falcons can't rush the passer for shit. Cleveland Browns can rush the passer. I don't know what to expect on offense. This game could go either way, but I'm expecting the Cleveland Browns to win this game. I said fade the Browns all year, but that was the Deshaun Watson era. This is the Jameis fucking Winston era, baby.
Man, can't wait for this 2-7 versus 3-7 matchup here. Really, what I'm going to be fired up to watch.
I can't wait.
Give me the Saints.
This one's a toss-up, man.
No, it sucks. I'll watch it just because.
You talked about Jekyll and Hyde earlier. This is 2 Jekyll and Hyde teams.
Yeah,
Browns beat the Ravens.
True. Derek Carr was 2-0, and people were saying MVP, and it's like 7.
And then their head coach gets fired 5 weeks later.
Yeah, Jameis won a game and then came out and threw 47 picks. So we just don't know. We just don't know. What's happening.
Let's go to an even better game. The Colts 4-6. AR is back, baby. They're at the Jets 3-7. Who I feel like we say this every week for the Jets. It's a must-win game. They gave up 7.1 yards per play against the Arizona Cardinals last week. The Jets' defense is just dog shit. Absolute trash.
Sauce Gardner suck now?
The whole defense doesn't. They all look like they're trying to make the play rather than play as one unit. It's been bad. Do the Colts get back on the winning track? Or do the Jets finally win that must-win game? They're -4 favorites.
I guess I'll take the Colts. I hate it.
I'm going to take the Jets just because you took the Colts. For why the hell not?
Yeah, I don't have any analysis. You basically benched a 20 your super young quarterback and said you're rolling with the dude for the rest of the season, and then turn around 2 weeks later and then put your rookie quarterback back in.
These are the 2 rest of the season teams, because for the rest of the season, it's a must-win for the Jets, and for the rest of the season, that's their quarterback. The only difference you've seen is Joe Flacco, when he throws interceptions, they get returned for interception, or they get returned for touchdowns. They get returned for interceptions. That made no sense. But anyway, when AR throws one, it's basically an arm punt. So, yeah, who knows? Ravens 7-3. The Ravens 7-3. They're 3-point favorites. Might move to 3.5 in some books. Against the Steelers at the Big Ketchup Bottle, which is now known as Acrisure Stadium. They're 7-2. The crazy thing about this game is it's got an over-under of 48.5. And we're so used to this game being defense where the over could be 23 and we'd all take the under. But these 2 teams are offense now.
Yeah.
Who are you liking this one?
I think this is the Ravens. I think the Steelers are a nice story, but I don't think this is I'm not saying it's not a legit team. I think it's probably a playoff team. But I think the Ravens are one of what you would consider one of the teams that you expect out of the AFC. So I think the Ravens kind of put it down here on them and probably win by 7 and 10 points.
Mm-hmm. Lamar 1-3 against the Steelers lifetime, which is crazy to think he's only played 4 games. It just tells you how many times he's been injured. George Pickens' prop right now is over 66 or over under 66.5 receiving yards. Hammer the over on that. That Ravens defense is trash, and he's been much better with Russell Wilson. Derrick Henry is the first player since Terrell Davis MVP season 98 to lead the league in rush yards, average touchdowns through week 10. And I expect him to score again and be the first player since Jerry Rice scored in the first 11 games. Give me the Ravens in this one, but I think it's going to be close, 24-21 type game. Maybe we get a push on that. Vikings 7-2 at Titans 2-7. Vikings 6-point favorites are undefeated in non-conference play for the second year in a row. What will Levis will show up? The Titans are better at home. What do you expect out of this one?
Yeah, I expect the Vikings to win, but let's not act like Sam Darnold wasn't wild last week and didn't look like himself at all.
He looked like the guy that saw ghosts.
Yeah, it looked like Sam Darnold. Like, that's what it looked like. This Sam Darnold, we don't know who this guy is, but that guy last week, we're like, hey, there he is. How you doing, Sam?
We know you.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Vikings are just the better team, so I'll give them the win here, but it made me feel something joyfully inside to see that Sam Darnold last week.
Yeah, Will Levis didn't have a turnover last week. I think it continues, even though he's going to get sacked.
Alvin Ridley, dude, has been really good lately.
Yeah, when they actually throw the ball to him, he's really good. And they played the Chargers, probably the best defense in the league right now. Yeah, Brian Flores' defense has been good, but the Vikings are like Miami, Miami, where they have been playing with fire a lot. I'm actually going to take the Titans in this one, just because Will Levis, the great unknown. Why the fuck not? 405 game. Falcons 6-4 at the Broncos 5-5. The Broncos 0-4 against teams 500 and better. 5-1 against under 500 teams. Who are you liking this one?
I like Denver. I think Denver should have won last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bo Nix has been better.
Yes,
and I like the Broncos are doing really good things, and the Falcons are. You just don't know what the Falcons are going to show up as. Like last week, it was like, where were they?
Yeah.
For most of that game. So I like the Broncos here, but the line being the Broncos -2 at home, I don't know about that.
This one, another coin flip. I mean, this game could go either way. The Broncos defense is for real, and what else is for real is your love every week for like the past 2.5 years for Bo Nix, the way it's growing. By the end of this year, I expect you to show up on camera wearing a Bo Nix jersey. Hell, by next year, you might have a Bo Nix tattoo the way your love grows every week for this guy.
A neck tat, Bo Nix. And I'll just do this during the shows.
That'd be phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I hope that never happens, though. I'm going to take the Falcons in this one. Everyone seems to be on the Broncos, and the Broncos are too Jekyll and Hyde for me to really go with. And the Falcons, I mean, they can't rush anyone. I expect this to be a high-scoring game. Take the over, but who knows? Speaking of Jekyll and Hyde, what happened to Geno Smith? He's like, did the clock strike 12 for Cinderella? Seahawks 4-5 at the Niners 5-4. Niners 6.5-point favorites. Since 2021, weeks 10 through 18, the Niners are the best team in the NFL, 24-4 straight up. Moody is Jekyll and Hyde as far as anything. Almost got his ass kicked by Debo like it was the first Friday. The Seahawks giving up 30 points per game over the last 5. Only the Panthers have given up more across that, and that is not good for those of you who don't realize that. Who you got in this one?
He gave me the Niners. I mean, to get McCaffrey back, I think they're going to hit a little bit of a rhythm here. They're only 5-4 right now. They need to. They need to hit a little rhythm, and they will because that's a good football team over there. The Seahawks are a mess.
Yeah.
To your point, Geno Smith, and Geno Smith's getting lit up too. Like the offensive line's not great. You think weapon wise, isn't DK Metcalf injured? I believe
he's supposed to be back this week.
Okay. So I don't know. Tyler Lockett's like clearly a senior citizen out there now. Yeah,
but,
give me the Niners.
It's hard to say. I'm going to take the Niners as well. 425 game, the Jim Nantz Tony Romo game as through that on CBS. Chiefs 9-0 at the Bills 8-2. Bills 2.5-point favorites. Mahomes against the spread as a dog 12-1, 11-3 straight up. We don't know if Dalton Kincaid's going to play. The Bills are 3-0 in the regular season against the Chiefs in their last 3, but they're 0-3 in the playoffs against the Bills or against the Chiefs. What do you expect out of this game? Is this the new Manning-Brady rivalry in the AFC? What do you expect out of this game, bud?
I expect the Bills to win. I think the Chiefs are 9-0. I think it's – I don't want to sound like a ridiculous person, but I think it's somewhat of a gimmick 9-0. I don't think they're that legitimately awesome of a football team right now. Now, they're going to get Isaiah Pacheco back, which is great, which certainly is going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But the Buffalo Bills, I like what they're doing. They're running the ball decently with James Cook, which we've talked about for years. That their ability to run the ball is kind of how things go. They're getting Amari Cooper back. It sounds like Keon Coleman's probably going to be out another week, but I like Buffalo at home, and this is a big spot for Buffalo. This would be a big win.
This is absolutely a huge game for Buffalo. More important for them than it is for the Chiefs. The Chiefs, like if you would have said at the beginning of the year that they'd be led by Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Hopkins and they'd be 9-0, we'd be like, what the fuck are you smoking? Are you doing lines like we were in the last segment? Yeah. I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. I think this is a big prove it game for them.
You're taking the Chiefs. Okay.
I'm going to take the Chiefs in this. I think this is going to be a fun game. The thing is, there's a wild card now. Harrison Butker's out, put on injured reserve today. 4 games he'll be out. Spencer Schrader comes in. If it comes down to Spencer Schrader kicking in Buffalo against Tyler Bass, who had a 61-yard game winner in the last game there, then the Bills win this game. I think this should be a fun game. I hope it's a fun game because we had a lot of ass games in that first window. We go to the 8:20 game Sunday night. Bengals 4-6. Their D sucks. They are 1.5-point dogs to the Chargers, 6-3, led by Jim Harbaugh, who, if you watch the video of him warming up with Justin Herbert,
he dropped that pass. He was so
shit. Oh shit! I'm so mad. This is the worst I've ever been. Phenomenal. Yeah. Like Jim Harbaugh, so hard to like. Even when he was Michigan's head coach, and I hate Michigan. Like it was hard to dislike him because he's so quirky, so fucking weird. But at the same time, you're like, how can you not like him? Like, yeah, it was weird. He was having sleepovers with kickers he was recruiting, but
that sounds like some Michael Jackson shit.
I mean, he's kind of fun at the same time. More so in the NFL.
100%. I 100% agree. Harbaugh, he's hilarious, dude.
And the defense for the Chargers, they're the real deal. I mean, Bosa and Khalil Mack turning back clock, playing real well. Derwin James is a dog, we all know. They're giving up the least points per game under a first-year head coach since the 2011 49ers, who were led by first-year head coach Jim Harbaugh. So he just goes and does what he does.
Yeah.
Who are you liking this one?
Yeah, give you the Bengals big. Oof. I think the Bengals win by 10 or plus points.
I think that sucks that you said that because I was going the exact same way.
They need this. The offense has been humming. T. Higgins is going to be back allegedly. I saw him run up the hill today, which people said, hey, listen, watch him run up the hill and then you feel better. And I was like, all right, he ran up the hill pretty well, so I'm all in. No, give me the Bengals. I think this is a big game for the Bengals, and I think that they come out and they dominate this game.
Yeah. I think Burrow not only wants to come out and win this game, but he's like, hey, a lot of people talking about Justin Herbert right now. I was the number one pick in that draft.
24 touchdowns and 4 picks.
Yeah, he wants to just shove it up everyone's ass right now. Ooh, Texans 6-4 at Cowboys 3-6. This is the Monday Night Football game. And Drew, this is a tough one for you because you've been the guy on it all year long saying after a team plays the Lions and the Lions beat the shit out of them, bet against them the next week. Are the Cowboys the remedy to heal the Texans after getting their asses kicked?
Yeah, they sure are. They sure are. Cooper Rush, Trey Lance, Jerry Jones, whoever you put out there, quarterback, that's it. It's a liability.
Jerry played quarterback at Arkansas, didn't
he? Yeah. All right, I got so many comments I won't make on here, but yeah, he may have.
I mean, I would like to know some of those comments.
Well, you're not going to get them. You're not going to get them. We're not. The show doesn't get canceled today.
Listen, it might have something to do with race if that's what you're leaning towards. And we all know there's only one race I hate, and that's 2001 Daytona 500 Praise Dale. But anyway, moving on to this game, I will also take the Houston Texans. Shit's getting weird. It's towards the end of the night, which means the end of the show, as always, we go to Ward's Wagers, where I haven't fixed the graphic, but you were 2-2 last week. You gave us 4 picks, which puts you at 159, 98, and 5 over the past 3 seasons. Drew, who you like this week in Ward's Wagers?
I'm going to take Tennessee plus the 9.5. That's college. That's college football for anybody who is wondering. NFL wise. So we just talked about this. I'm going to take the Ravens -3. Even on the road in Pittsburgh. And I'm also going to take Buffalo -2. I'm doing 4 picks this week. Buffalo -2 at home against the Chiefs, and give me the Bengals as well. Getting 1.5. Just throw the money line. We don't need it. And I'll take that as well. So Bengals -1.5, Chiefs, or excuse me, Bills -2, Ravens -3 on the road, and then we're gonna take the 9.5 with the Volunteers.
Dig it. Let's go 4-0 on that one. Should make for a fun weekend. We got some really good games. We got some really bad games. College football is heating up. NFL is getting towards the last part of the season. We are already week 11 NFL, week 12 college football. If you're looking for any more bets, take that Pickens prop I gave you, and Jonathan Taylor take his over on 84.5 rushing yards as well. I like those. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here tonight?
No, man, I'm looking forward to another. It's getting chilly, but this is football season. And
Anything
things
good?
Are start ramping up here.
Yeah, anything good for football food this weekend you got going?
No, so I am playing golf at 9:30 in the morning on Sunday. So
Nice.
I said I'm willing to sacrifice the first half of the first quarter of Lions Jags. Oh man, excuse me. Yeah, so I'm going golfing. No, the first quarter of Lions Jags I might miss, but it's worth it. We're running out of days.
Yeah, highly unlikely that game's going to be that tight by the time you are done off the course.
I hope not.
Let's hope it's a good one. Good luck to you on the golf course. Go hang out with the little one. You have a good rest of your night. And to everyone else, thank you for watching, listening, whatever you're doing, however you're enjoying the show. And remember, as always, if you live the life you love the life you live. Good night, kids. Click.